Thanks for clicking play on the latest edition of Iowa Revolution. My name is Spencer. He's Dr. Bob, and we have a special guest with us today, Dr. Bob.
Yes, we do.
Abena Imhotep. She's an award-winning author, scholar, and activist, also an Iowan. Abena, thanks for joining the show. It's good to see you.
Spencer, Dr. Bob, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
So first of all, if people are unfamiliar with you and your background, kind of tell us what you do and what you're passionate about.
For sure. Well, I'm passionate about a lot of things, namely books, specifically books by Black authors. So I live and work in the Des Moines area. I am the CEO of Sankofa Literary Empowerment Group. So it's an organization that creates spaces for lifelong learning, centering the scholarship and authorship of Black intellectuals. I also have a podcast, which is one of my favorite things in the world. It's called Black and Privileged in America Podcast, available everywhere you listen to your podcasts. We focus on power, love, and money conversations relevant to Black thriving. And I just started a new Substack. I was so excited to be a part of this platform and a part of the Iowa Writers Collaborative. So my Substack is called the Imhotep Report. So I hope everyone goes out and subscribes to my Substack platform.
Abena, like I said, it's a pleasure to have you along. And can you just kind of tell us briefly how you and Dr. Bob kind of hooked up and met?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of Dr. Bob for a really long time, but I actually got to meet him and have conversations with him at the Iowa Okoboji Writers and Songwriters Retreat last fall. And I walked up to him and I said, you're a hero. And I don't think he thought I was serious. I was like dead serious. And I said, you're one of my heroes. And he was so bashful and kind. But yeah, he's a great guy.
Well, yeah, like I said, it's great to have you along with us and a lot of stuff to talk about today. In fact, we're going to start off with Dr. Bob's writing at his Deep Midwest Substack. He wrote about Brooke Rollins, the new USDA director, and her comments that she had a couple weeks ago in Iowa. We'll also talk about some of the protests. Dr. Bob, you had a Substack live of those hands-off protests that went on over the weekend across the country, and especially you were in Des Moines. So Dave Busick had a Substack that was just released today, kind of talking about the media's response and coverage of those protests. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about the tariffs and those impacting the state of Iowa, where exactly we're at right now, because it can kind of be a little bit head spinning just with all the different crap that's coming out and who's being tariffed and who's not and what rate and all those sorts of things. Also, wanted to talk a little bit more. Dr. Bob, we've talked a lot about the disappearance of bugs on this show. And this was a Reuters article. It was actually 3 years old, but it's still very, very pertinent to what's going on to today. So I was just kind of thinking about the conversations that we had had and just how even when you're driving through Iowa, you don't see the bug debris on your windshield and on your, vehicle grill. And there is proof that bugs are disappearing. So I wanted to get some facts out there on that. We'll have good news towards the end of the show. Elon Musk was bullied out of a live stream playing video games, and it was fantastic. So I wanted to get to that. We'll have a factoid of the week. This is one that I had to double check myself. It was one of those things that I saw on Facebook, but didn't really think it was true. So I actually did some Googling. It was what I did, and actually, this is true. So hold on for the factoid of the week towards the end of the show. And I haven't mentioned yet, but I am really happy to have Abena on the show this week in particular. She is an author, and she does champion Black authors, and it's National Library Week. So one of my favorite authors is David Foster Wallace. In fact, Dr. Bob, you're coming to us from the Knoxville Library.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's good to have you in the library. And Abena obviously has books that she has and that she champions in the library. So we'll end with top 5 David Foster Wallace quotes. I think those are always good to get to. So we will start off with this. Again, this is from Dr. Bob. And he had a transcript from a video from Brooke Rollins' visit to Iowa. And I would recommend going to the Substack because it's more multimedia. You have the videos and you have the tweets and those sorts of things. But I wanted to quote just the script of the video. You also added in some of your own editorializing, but we'll just go through the script of what happened. So there's a male voice off camera that says, "I call it woke seeds." Rollins says, "Should I do a quick video?" And she was trying to appear like it wasn't staged. She says, "Hi, everyone. It's Brooke Rollins here at USDA. We started really early this morning, as we always do. We're here fighting for farmers and ranchers and putting Americans first. But you're not going to believe what we just found. Behind the door at USDA, we found a whole box of these seeds. And listen, we love seeds here at USDA, but check these out. These are specific tomato seeds that are for growing diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility at USDA. I mean, look at these. If you can be anything, be inclusive at USDA. America, this is what we're fighting here in Washington, D.C. This is why we are completely working to realign under President Trump's vision our entire government about returning power to the people, about ensuring that we're putting Americans first, and that we really are going to make America great again and no longer will spend tax dollars on diversity, equity, inclusion at USDA. Now, Abena, I'd like to get your comments first. Obviously, equity is a big part of what you do and what drives your work. Your thoughts on seeing somebody with so much power give so much light to such a serious situation?
Yeah, I think that my views pretty much align with the majority of people who understand that, uh, you know, racism is real. Racism is alive and well. A lot of my work does uh, begin, end, and is rooted in equity. Equity is all about fairness. And I'm thinking about that individual that you just quoted, talking about President Trump's vision uh, for our entire government being about returning power to the people. My question would be, which people is that person alluding to? And of course, the person is alluding to white people. And I think what we're seeing now is fear. This is nothing but fear. If you've ever seen anything die, what you will hear is a cry. When anything is about to die, you will hear a cry. And so I feel like this fear is an indicator of the death of white supremacy. It really is. It is the last strangled cry of white supremacy and racism that we're hearing reverberate throughout this country.
I think the most depressing part about it is it's not only coming from the leadership, but this is also seemingly what a lot of voters voted for. So it's even more depressing even to live in a state where you're surrounded by people that are cheering not just the economic policies, but some of these let's just call it what it is, anti-Black, anti-immigrant policies.
Absolutely. And this is the whole reason why I did my TEDx talk on Iowa Nice to begin with. It's Iowa Nice interrupted, because it's a phrase like many colloquialisms used throughout this country that is designed to help people feel better about the way they feel about people they want to other. Iowa Nice isn't nice for everyone. And clearly, statements like this individual made were made as a last cry because white supremacy and racism is dying. We know that in the next couple of decades, this country will be majority people of color. And so that is scary to a lot of white people. White folks are scared. And so that's what this is. And I don't want to mince words about it. I'm just going to call it like it is. This is racist.
And Dr. Bob, you did also write in some of those editorializing comments, like I said, and you also pointed that out, that this is strictly a white supremacist version of our agricultural. I mean, Iowans are beholden to agriculture, and here's our leader in the agriculture business in the Washington, D.C., basically saying, unless you're white, you're not welcome in this agricultural world.
That's what she was saying. That's exactly what she was saying. And what you didn't mention is at the end of that video that we should mention is she threw those seeds in the trash.
Right.
And she wasn't just throwing seeds in the trash. She was throwing people, whole cultures in the trash, saying that they weren't valued. And, I'm an anthropologist and I'm interested in history in the past. And those tomato seeds, they were domesticated in Ecuador and in Peru. And then they made their way through Mesoamerica. There might have been 20 different cultures that contributed to the domestication of the tomato. All of those farmers, for at least 2 or 3 millennia, essentially helped domesticate that plant. And white people didn't come in, until the very end of it, and planting tomatoes in the United States, and the Spanish took them to Europe. But so the whole history of the tomato plant, of the seeds, and of most seeds around the world, white people are end users. And so by not recognizing the past, you're not recognizing the contributions that other people have made of other cultures, and certainly not valuing them. And then I pressured her. I was in the press gaggle and I asked her about it. And she gave this sort of smug, if people have watched the video, I mean, you only have to watch the last minute and a half of it, but she gave this. I asked her about throwing those seeds away and how disrespectful it was. And she just smugly smiled at me and looked away from me and went on about, listen, this is America. We're about unity. America was founded or something on unity and equality, I think is what she said. And no, it's not. It was founded, and we need to recognize this, on slavery and genocide. And she's just telling this simple, wrong, racist story that makes white people, but only, ignorant white people, arrogant white people, or nasty white people. It makes them feel comfortable. The ignorance is ignorant, but the other parts of it, the arrogance and I don't know. There's a whole lot of evil going on right now, and I'm really happy to see and hear how you put it, Abena, is that this is the death cry, where they want us to be in fear. Their death cry is their fear.
Absolutely. And not only, you mentioned slavery and genocide, that is purely the foundations of this country, is enslavement and genocide. And enslaved Africans were brought here and forced to farm, forced to do this agricultural work and domestic work. So without pay. And so we're talking seeds, we're talking farming, we're talking the history of it in this country, enslavement. And so the attempts to whitewash our history are stark and they can be startling, but we have to be willing to see it for what it is and to call it out at every opportunity immediately.
Let's get to those protests that were going on nationwide and also statewide in the state of Iowa. This is from Dave Busick on Media on Substack. Dave Busick was the longtime news director for KCCI-TV in Des Moines, so he knows what he's talking about. Quoting him now, the mass protests in Des Moines and other Iowa cities this past Saturday were covered, but I would rate the coverage as routine. Ho-hum. Another garden variety protest rally. I sense many citizens are furious at how our government is being torn apart, how immigrants are being seized and shipped out of the country with no due process rights, how Trump is attacking universities, law firms, and the news media itself. Iowans are frightened seeing their investment accounts wither away under Trump's reckless tariffs. People are shocked that Congress shirks its duties and lets Trump run rampant. Fury, fright, shock. And my point is that none of that emotion is coming through in the coverage. On the local TV news, the station showed a crowd shot here, a protest sign there, a soundbite, all standard stuff. The Sunday print Des Moines Register had not one mention of the rally in Des Moines early Saturday afternoon that attracted thousands of people. Not once did I see a reporter describe the mood of the crowd. I got a better sense of Saturday's rallies by looking at social media and some of my cohorts in the Iowa Writers Collaborative than I did from major media outlets. Guys like Dr. Bob Leonard know how to tell a story. Good reporters can sense when they've got a juicy story on their hands, and they skillfully use their powers of observation, their writing skills, and their storytelling abilities to swing for the fences and knock it out of the park. Sadly, with coverage of all the gut-wrenching stories affecting our lives the past few months, I'm seeing far too many bunt singles and not nearly enough home runs. Dr. Bob, I'll start with you. Obviously, he name-checked you in his article, and you were there at those protests. So I guess if you could, for us, describe the mood, describe what you saw.
I saw a lot of people just barely holding back their rage. They were doing their best. They were very, very angry, and I saw them there together, building solidarity, recognizing that they weren't alone. Sometimes it feels so very lonely in the sense that so much bad is happening around the world that we're so powerless about. But the people that were there felt powerful. They felt seen. And you know what? If the media isn't going to do their job, first, I really appreciate the shout out by Dave. But if the media isn't going to do their job, they've been captured. They've been captured, and they're fearful. They don't want to, lose readership. I don't know. I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of it like Dave, is you've got to capture the energy of the moment. You've got to describe it. If you don't describe the energy and what people are feeling and what people are saying and what's on their signs and what really means to them, if you don't capture that or try to capture it, you're totally being disrespectful of the people around us. And they think that they're being unbalanced. But this is a time unprecedented in our history where a fascist is coming after our democracy and corporations and libraries and teachers, and to act like this is a two sides issue and it's coming after minorities, marginalized people, trans people. It's a fascist regime, and they're coming after the stock market. They're undermining every aspect of our democracy, and the media is covering it like, I don't know, it's a baseball game or something. They're not even
I would
giving
say
the
probably
story.
even with less emotion than a baseball game.
Yeah.
Sports writers would probably do a better job of capturing the emotion that some of these news reporters are doing currently, at least for some of the legacy media outlets. Like we've said before, Substack is a great source of news. It's nice to have Abena now joining Substack as well. We're seeing more and more writers from across the state and across the country joining Substack where they can be their own editors. They don't have to worry about what anybody is going to tell them what they can and cannot write about. So I think it is freeing up reporters in a way that they haven't been freed up before. And again, this is Iowa Revolution. My name is Spencer. Dr. Bob is joining us, of course. And we're also joined by Abena Sankova Imhotep. She is a author, CEO, scholar. She lives in Des Moines. And obviously these protests, Abena, happened in Des Moines. I guess just give us the sense of what your community is feeling right now with this basically non-coverage of this fury.
Well, I can give you a sense of what I'm feeling. I dare not speak for an entire group of people. We are not a monolith, as any group. However, I did notice a couple of interesting things. Number one, I'm really happy that people decided to protest. Bob mentioned that people were angry. People are angry, and this is true. I wonder how much more it will take for us to burst through into that rage in order to make something happen. I mean, listen, in the piece that you read from Dave Busick, he listed a short list of things that are being attacked: our universities, law firms, news media, 401ks, Social Security, you name it, it's under attack. Not to mention all the attack on Black and brown people and other non-white people. LGBTQ folks. Don't get me to messing up the alphabet. I'm trying to get it right. But I mean, everything that is non-white, non-male, and non-Christian is under attack right now. And how much more should people be willing to take? I saw some of the signage and things that protesters had in their hands on social media, similar to you all's experience. The bulk of the information I received from the protests was on social media. Great coverage there, amazing coverage. And I think the lack of coverage in major media underscores the need for independent media. We have great, fantastic independent media emerging here in Central Iowa. I'll call out two of them: the Urban Experience magazine, which is a decades old Black magazine that covers Central Iowa, and then Black Iowa News. Dana James is the publisher. She's also on Substack, and this is a statewide Black newspaper that highlights and elevates Black stories. So those two publications do a great job at independent media, making sure that we get news and information that matters to the community. Again, I think we need to continue to reinforce those kinds of efforts, all types of independent media, the writers in the Iowa Writers Collaborative, and I'll continue to critique other media because guess what? When it was Black Lives Matter protests, everybody was outside with their cameras in protesters' faces, covering from sun up to sundown, to the point with collaborations with law enforcement. And that is what I find very troubling, is that depending on who the protesters are and the subject matter being protested, that informs what kind of coverage we get. So that's an area that I find it gave me pause. Another one is that I wonder again. Most of the protesters that we saw out there this weekend were white, and I'm super happy that a lot of white folks got together and said enough is enough. I'm super happy about that. I also want to know what's coming next because protesting is one part of a multiple pronged effort. We've seen if we remember, protests of old, they were part of a larger strategy. So I'm wondering what the strategy is going forward, what that's going to look like, what is that resistance going to look like, and is it going to be an inclusive effort? I saw a lot of black folks stay home, me included. I heard about the protests that were going to happen, but I said, you know what? I'm resting. I'm resting. I've been protesting for dang near my whole life. I'm tired and I'm going to let other people take up this mantle. And I'm really happy that others did. I'm curious about what the next move is going forward. And two, my last point I'll say is the things that are being protested, this isn't a surprise to us. All of this stuff was laid out for us in Project 2025. Everything that is happening right now has been told beforehand. And it's about arming ourselves with information and understanding that these people are not joking. When they say little things in their press conferences or what we perceive to be little minor things, we should take them seriously. They're sharing their playbook with us, and so we should not be caught by surprise.
Let's get to some of that playbook here. The tariffs, of course, this is from CNBC. China has pushed back once again to U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff policies by hiking its levies on U.S. imports to more than 80%. China's Office of the Tariff Commission of the State Council said tariffs on U.S. goods will rise to 84% from 34% starting tomorrow, April 10th, according to a translation of the announcement. This comes after the latest U.S. tariff hike, which brings levies on Chinese goods to more than 100%. That took effect today, April 9th. The repeated escalation of the tariffs threatens to bring trade between two of the world's most important economies to a standstill. According to the Office of U.S. Trade Representative, the U.S. exported 143.5 billion of goods to China in 2024. We imported $438.9 billion of goods from China. The Trump administration announced a sweeping new tariff policy last week and warned other countries not to retaliate. Some nations, including Japan, have seemed willing to negotiate on tariffs, but China appears to be taking a more hardline stance and quickly announced a counter tariff. So we're seeing we already saw tariffs in mid to late March between Canada and Mexico. We also saw 10%. Those were 25% tariffs. We saw 10% tariffs previously added to China. And then we just had those tariffs against all of the nations that had tariffs against us take effect today. So as we stand right now, we're basically Abena in a trade war with the entire world, and apparently asking them to come to the table and trying to negotiate with, at this point, upwards of 100 different countries.
I grapple with the we part of that, but I know the spirit in which you're speaking. I do. We, as in the United States of America and Americans, being represented by these individuals who do not have our best interest at heart. I'm not an economist, so I can't speak to the specifics. But I have a lot of questions about tariffs, and I heard on one network that an economist say that it would take between 6 to 9 months after a tariff goes into effect for it to trickle down to consumers. So I know that this is going to affect parents who are buying diapers and formula for their children, people who like to enjoy a weekend out and want to have a bourbon or like me, a margarita. It's going to affect us in one way or another. People who may not necessarily have a barrier to transportation, but they want to buy a new car, they're going to have issues potentially with that. So these are the questions that I have because the answers to them are going to disproportionately impact my community. And so, of course, we know that when America catches a cold, Black folks get pneumonia. So I want us to take our proverbial vitamin C and get ready.
Yeah, and Dr. Bob, yeah, go ahead.
Well, what bothers me is when the people in the media, with the exception of some economists, they sort of act like this is a strategy by Trump. It's an economic strategy that we'll have to wait and see if it works, with the hope that it won't bring us into a recession. The actual fact of the matter, to me, is Trump wants a recession. This is purposeful. This isn't wishful thinking about the economy. There's no economic rationale behind this return to mercantilism. The whole purpose is to crash the economy, to punish the American people, and so the billionaires can pick up the pieces on the cheap, then invest in the stock market. You know, Donald Trump is selling the stock market short. So are all the billionaires. And then they can buy on the cheap, and then they'll profit on the other end of it, while the rest of us are in terrible, terrible trouble. And it shouldn't be surprising to you that J.D. Vance has invested in a land acquisition company that is focused on family farms, on agricultural land. So the big agribusinesses, they actually want to service fewer farms. And when the economy crashes and the China tariffs kill off our smaller farms, and by smaller farms, it might mean everything up to 500,000 acres. I don't know. But then J.D. Vance will profit off of failed farms as a result of Donald Trump's tariffs. And this is purposeful. And the media needs to consider that it's purposeful. And if I'm wrong that it's not purposeful, then nothing has been lost. If I'm right and it's purposeful, that involves a whole other type of preparation and resistance.
Again, this is Iowa Revolution. My name is Spencer. Dr. Bob is with me as well, and we're welcoming our second ever guest, Abena Imhotep. She is a Des Moines author, CEO, and just all around good person. So far, I've just met you, but I'm certainly liking what I hear so far. Let's get to our next story. This is a wider scope. From Reuters, as a boy in the 1960s, David Wagner would run around his family's Missouri farm with a glass jar clutched in his hand, scooping flickering fireflies out of the sky. Quoting him, we could fill it up and put it by our bedside at night. That's all gone. The family farm now paved over with new homes and manicured lawns, and Wagner's beloved fireflies, like so many insects worldwide, have largely vanished in what scientists are calling the global insect apocalypse. As human activities rapidly transform the planet, the global insect population is declining at an unprecedented rate of up to 2% per year. Amid deforestation, pesticide use, artificial light pollution, and climate change, these critters are struggling along with the crops, flowers, and other animals that rely on them to survive. Quoting Wagner again here, insects are the food that make all the birds and make all the fish. Wagner, by the way, works for the University of Connecticut. Quoting him again, they're the fabric tethering together every freshwater and terrestrial ecosystem across the planet. But insects are so much more than food. Farmers depend on these critters, pollinating crops and churning soil to keep it healthy, among other activities. And just listing off a few facts here, and of course, I mentioned, and we all know that Iowa is an agricultural state. Listen to this. Insects pollinate more than 75% of global crops, a service valued at up to $577 billion per year. In the U.S., insects performed services valued in 2006, so almost 20 years ago, at an estimated $57 billion per year. That was according to a study in the journal Bioscience. Finally, dung beetles alone are worth more than $380 million per year to the U.S. cattle industry for their work breaking down manure and churning rangeland soil. So if we continue to lose these bugs, Dr. Bob, and you, of course, have your other Substack as well, Taking a Walk with Dr. Bob in the Woods. Cedar Creek Nature Notes is where you can find that in Substack. But I'm sure you've seen up close and personal the effect of these declining bug populations.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when, we were kids driving around on Friday night or Saturday night, we'd have to stop a couple of times to clear the bugs off the windshield, just in one night. And now there's no bugs on the windshield at all. And I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but what's happening to our planet is the product of unfettered capitalism that where corporations since before the Industrial Revolution, colonial populations went to the far corners of the earth and extracted as many resources as they could without any consideration of the environmental or human consequences. And now we're seeing what some people are, calling the end of capitalism or peak capitalism, whatever. But it's like, this is what capitalism does. Unfettered capitalism, just extracting resources. And what it's done is it's mined whole countries, whole continents, like it's the dark side of the moon with no one watching. And we're reaping that now. And we have to stand up. And the consequences for cultures, for continents. And so they go extract the resources from foreign countries, other continents, and then they say, "Oh, those poor people over there, those people are poor." No, those people were rich, and then capitalists stole their wealth.
This is Iowa Revolution. Abena Imhotep is our guest on this Substack Live. Thanks to everybody that's joined so far. We've got 63 live viewers right now as we speak. So thanks to everybody that is joining us right now. And Abena, I'm 42. I'm guessing you're roughly the same age. But
I'll
when I
take
grew
it.
up, catching fireflies and that sort of stuff, and just taking a microscope out and just collecting bugs and that sort of stuff is what we did. I don't even know the last time that I saw more than 3 lightning bugs at the same time.
It's really interesting that the other day I was unlocking the door to my house and it was early evening, the sun was setting, and as I was about to turn the doorknob, I looked down because I saw a flicker of light and it was a lightning bug. I couldn't believe it. It set in at that moment how long it had been since I'd seen a lightning bug. And I remember I was one of the kids, my siblings and I go out in the backyard in the evenings and capture them in a jar and try to, help them to survive indoors. And we failed a lot of times. So I think that was our inner capitalism. We were internalizing that. But I say that to say that I agree wholeheartedly with Dr. Bob, thinking about the pillage and plunder that's happening across the African continent. Greenland is in the sights of our current the current leaders of this country, and the pillage and plunder that's happened across neighborhoods across our country in many different ways. State sanctioned violence against communities and anti-environmentalist policies. We've seen our EPA is getting gutted right now. And part of the reason that I wrote my children's book, Omari's Big Tree and the Mighty Djembe, is to let children know that although you might be a child, you do have a role to play in safeguarding our community as far as making sure our parks are clean, making sure your yard is picked up and things like that. So if parents are wondering how to have a conversation about environmentalism and safety during natural disasters, because all of that is intensifying in frequency and intensity with these ridiculous policies that are being put forward, and the rollback of policies that were meant to help our situation with climate change, I'd say purchase my book. Yes, shameless plug. Go get Omari's Big Tree and the Mighty Djembe to help you learn how you can have these conversations with your kids. Be a part of the change by making sure that your parks are nice and that your neighborhood is well kept. So yeah, we need our bugs. We need our bugs. I frequently take road trips across Iowa because I do work across the state, and I don't have to use as much windshield wiper fluid as I once did. And at first, it wasn't as bothersome to me until I realized, oh my gosh, we're losing our bugs. So we need our bugs.
We do, and especially the state of Iowa, especially to get those crops pollinated, so we can all not only feed ourselves but also feed the world. Let's get to some good news here. It's another story that I didn't quite believe at first, and it's hard to believe any story with Elon Musk at first blush. Anyway, you kind of have to dig in a little bit. But this is from Daily Beast. Elon Musk rage quit a live stream of the video game Path of Exile 2 on Saturday night after repeatedly dying while also being ruthlessly cyberbullied in the chat. The Doge chief was predictably terrible at the game, but that was the least of his problems. Less than 5 minutes into the stream, a player logged on and asked Musk if he could, quote, please jerk off Mr. Trump so he dies of a heart attack, end quote. It only got worse from there. For the next hour and a half, Musk sat in a stony-faced silence and blasted techno music. By the way, some of that was Grimes, his ex-wife, which was odd, while dozens of users with names such as Elon is a pedophile and Elon Musk is pathetic repeatedly spammed the chat to tell him, quote, "You have no friends and you will die alone," and, quote, "You will always feel insecure and it will never go away." I would welcome thoughts from anybody or a chuckle, but yeah, I'm just glad that if you're going to show up in public after what you've done, this is the least he could expect.
Well, one of the things that I've been reading a lot on tyranny and authoritarianism, and how among the many ways to fight it, one is solidarity, one is resistance, and one of the most interesting things is the importance of ridicule. And I think that this was just a really good example how the use of ridicule can undermine even the most powerful.
So none of those were you, Dr. Bob? You aren't Elon is a pedophile?
No.
You weren't the one spamming the chat? Because it wasn't me. I will say that it was not me.
No, if I had a name, if I gave him a name, it would be one that I would know to be true. And so we don't know, if that's part of his nature. So I would just, I would do something like Elon's a thief or Elon's, something.
I think Elon Musk is pathetic. That's about as good as it gets, because he is just Abena. At this point, he's a pathetic loser, and he just needs to know that.
Elon Musk is a symptom of the impact of colonialism on the world. And I feel like ridicule is fine. Ridicule is great. It gave me a chuckle. I really wanted to like belly laugh, but that would be a lot. But I'm writing this piece, and I talked about it to some peers and colleagues last week that I'm working on this piece. I thought I'd have it done by now, but not so. The research is very in depth, but it's about Elon Musk and the ethos that he comes from, that he emerges out of, South African apartheid, and how that kind of political climate being raised in that, and how that's affecting the way he sees the world now and his relationship, for lack of better words, to Black people across the diaspora. So ridicule is fine, but I take Elon Musk and everything he represents very seriously, because I think he is a symptom of a much larger global societal illness.
One thing, Bill Burr he's always been a great comedian, if you ask me, but he has sort of reemerged, I guess, as the voice of the left in terms of stand-up comedy. And one of the things he said is, look, man, you came to America and you became the richest man in the world. So what is your freaking problem with America? So you came here, utilized everything that we could to give you, and then you obviously not paid your fair share of taxes. But now you're going to come back and take all that stuff away that you used for everybody else. But I guess that's what happens when you do become the richest, most powerful man in the world.
It is. And, for every Elon Musk, there is the counterpart of a white woman who benefits. You brought up Bill Burr, and I absolutely love him. He also said that in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion, and the fact that white women are the main benefactors of DEI, he said it like this: white women swung their Gucci booted heels over the fence of oppression and jumped first in line.
Nice.
I love Bill Burr.
Me too.
Anything else that you would like to mention, Abena? We're kind of nearing the end of the show. We got our factoid of the week coming up, and also our top 5 here. But if you would, go ahead and plug away. We do have live people that have just joined us as we've gone, and it's truly been a pleasure to have you on the show. I hope we get a chance to have you back again. But again, if people have just joined us here as the show has gone on, you kind of explained, your background to start the show. But if our people are new to you, who are you, and where can people find your stuff?
Thank you so much, Spencer. You and Dr. Bob, it's been a pleasure to be on today. Again, my name is Abena Sankofa Imhotep, CEO of Sankofa Literary and Empowerment Group, host of Black and Privileged in America podcast, author of Omari's Big Tree and the Mighty Djembe, and I'm on the Substack platform with my Substack called The Imhotep Report. And the impetus behind all of my work is to create spaces for lifelong learning, to build a world where all children love to read, and to ask questions about the historical narrative and challenge those narratives if they're wrong, and to celebrate Africana.
All right. Thank you so much. And this is the factoid of the week, by the way. Again, I did have to double check this. Scientists have observed a rhythmic microseismic pulse occurring roughly every 26 seconds, sometimes referred to as Earth's heartbeat. Though the exact cause, and this is the weird part, the exact cause remains a mystery. How about that? Earth has a heartbeat every 26 seconds. By the way, the sound of the Earth, I believe, is 7.87 hertz. So that's the like hum of Earth. So obviously that's we don't hear it, but yeah, there you go. There's a couple factoids of the week for you.
I think that's delightful. I think that's wonderful. The earth has a heartbeat. And I also think that it's wonderful we don't know what is causing it because, as I often think, sometimes in our ignorance, there is wonder, and it's just wonderful.
I agree. I'm so glad that they don't know. Whenever there's something that we don't know, it does. It just sort of fills you with like wonder, like childlike wonder where, oh, there's not an answer to that question. We don't know what that sound is, which, yeah, it's cool. All right, top 5 to end the show. And again, this has been Iowa Revolution. Make sure to follow us on Substack, iowarevolution.substack.com. Dr. Bob has his 2 Substacks, Deep Midwest Politics and Culture, and also Cedar Creek Nature Notes. So make sure you follow all of those on Substack, and also make sure you search out Abena Imhotep's Substack as well, as she is a new user of the Substack platform. So also glad to have you here with us on Substack as well. So this is top 5 David Foster Wallace quotes. He's my favorite author, at least one of my favorite authors. And again, this is National Library Week. We have an author on the show today. So I thought, let's have some literary quotes, shall we? And we're going to start off with a longer one, so just bear with me. Number 5, but it also ties into what we do. It's political. So quoting David Foster Wallace, if you are bored and disgusted by politics and don't bother to vote, you are in effect voting for the entrenched establishments of the 2 major parties, who, please rest assured, are not dumb and who are keenly aware that it is in their interest to keep you disgusted and bored and cynical and to give you every possible reason to stay at home doing one-hitters and watching MTV on primary day. By all means, stay home if you want, but don't bullshit yourself that you're not voting. In reality, there is no such thing as not voting. You either vote by voting, or you vote by staying home and tacitly doubling the value of some diehards vote.
I think that's dated.
Ta-da! The one-hitters and MTV. Yeah.
Well,
now we're vaping and watching YouTube.
I think we've passed a tipping point where I think that more and more people recognize the need to be engaged, or at least that's my hope, that people were. I think he adequately was describing the situation back then, but I hope it's changing as people feel the pain personally and they recognize the injustices that are ongoing. I think that I'm hoping anyway that people engage because the resistance, the Republican Party has given up. The Democratic Party isn't going to save us. We are going to save us, the people.
Number 4, the really important kind of freedom involves attention and awareness and discipline and effort and being able to truly care about other people and to sacrifice for them over and over in myriad petty little unsexy ways every day.
I think the optimal part of that quote is over and over. Freedom is a constant struggle. It's something that we have to work at all the time, always, in all ways, and pass the baton to the next generation so that they can do their part too.
And also, freedom is something that it's not something we receive, it's something that we are responsible for. It's not leave me alone. It's no, I have to be a part of this in order to make sure that I and everybody else remains free. Number 3, the truth will set you free, but not until it is finished with you. Always like that one. Number 2, everything I've ever let go of has claw marks on
You better believe it.
it. And this is probably my favorite quote, period. It's something that I would guess it's sort of a mantra of mine. Number 1, David Foster Wallace quote, "You will become way less concerned with what other people think of you when you realize how seldom they do." Most people are pretty much just concerned about their own life. And if they think
Yeah.
about you, great, but they're probably not.
Oh, Spencer, you think about me all the time.
That's true. That quote does not apply to you, Dr. Bob. There is always something burning your ears, that's for sure. Abena Imhotep, thank you so much for joining us on this Iowa Revolution Live Substack. Again, you can make sure to follow her work. She's new to Substack, and she also has a book available. And just make sure that you watch out for her again on Substack. Dr. Bob, always a pleasure, and thank you also for recommending that we do this with Abena today. It really has been. It's been special. It's been nice.
It's my
Yes.
honor. Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Thanks everybody for joining us today, and again, thanks to Abena, and we'll see everybody next week. Thanks.